help us hit our first 1,000 subscribers. Your support drives us to create even more wonderful stories. Thanks for being part of our journey. I always thought I was doing everything right, not perfect. Never had the sharpest suit or the flashiest car, but I showed up every single day. I worked long hours at the auto shop, came home covered in grease, and still made time to kiss my wife on the forehead and ask her how her day went. Her name was Emily. She used to call me her rock. Said I made her feel safe in a world that never did, and maybe that's what I clung to the most. That somehow, despite all the noise and chaos, I could be someone's calm, someone's home. Money was always tight. We skipped vacations. We counted coupons. I'd lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd pay the electric bill. But every morning, I'd get up before the sun, lace my old boots, and remind myself, this is what love looks like. I thought she saw that too, until the morning I found the envelope. It was sitting by the coffee pot, stained on the corner like it had been there a while. Just a plain white envelope with my name scribbled across it in Emily's handwriting. I opened it without thinking. Inside were divorce papers. No explanation, no note. Just the cold, stamped reality that the woman I gave my world to was walking away without a single word. My knees buckled. I had to grab the kitchen counter to keep myself upright. My hands, the same hands that fixed her broken sink, massaged her tired shoulders, held her through her panic attacks, were trembling. I called her straight to voicemail. I texted nothing. Felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. And the worst part? Deep down, a part of me already knew. There had been signs, subtle shifts. The way she flinched when I touched her, the locked phone, the sudden late work meetings, but I didn't want to believe them, because when you've spent your whole life convincing yourself you're finally enough, finally loved, admitting it was all a lie, that breaks something inside you, something that doesn't grow back the same. At first, it was small things, the kind of things you try to ignore because you want to believe you're just imagining them. Late night texts she wouldn't explain. Quiet phone calls she'd take in the hallway. Her suddenly locking her phone when she never used to. And the smell of cologne on her coat that definitely wasn't mine. I told myself I was overthinking, that maybe I was just tired, working overtime, skipping meals, fighting off another headache. I didn't want to be that paranoid husband, the guy who accused his wife because he was insecure, but something inside me, something deep, like a cold whisper in my bones, told me something was off. And Sarah, she started pulling away. Her eyes didn't light up when I walked through the door anymore. Her hugs felt shorter, her kisses colder. She started going out more, girls' nights, work dinners, even weekend retreats. And me? I was always the one watching the kids, heating leftovers, trying not to count the hours she was gone. One night, I asked her, gently, if everything was okay. She just smiled that practice smile and said, "You're overthinking again. Maybe get some rest, babe." Maybe I should have stopped right there. Maybe I should have trusted her. But my gut, it was screaming. And when you've spent your whole life being lied to, used, overlooked, that scream becomes something you can't ignore. I started watching, not spying, not yet, but noticing, writing things down, dates, times, excuses. It felt sick. It felt wrong. But worse than that, it felt necessary, because the woman I gave my soul to was slowly becoming a stranger, and I had no idea what she was hiding. It was a Thursday. Rain was tapping gently on the kitchen window, and the house felt oddly quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't bring peace, but pressure. I came home early from work. Not on purpose. My shift at the warehouse was cut short because machines broke down again. No pay for the lost hours, of course. Another hit to the bank account. I remember walking through the door and calling out, "I'm home." No answer. The living room lights were off, TV silent. Just the faint sound of her voice, Sarah's voice, coming from upstairs. It wasn't loud, but it wasn't the kind of voice you use on a work call either. It was soft, laughing, flirty. I froze. I wanted to believe she was on the phone with her sister, or watching a movie, or anything normal, but my gut clenched again, the same way it had been doing more and more lately. I walked up the stairs slowly, step by step, like I was climbing toward a truth I didn't want to find. The bedroom door was cracked open, just enough to hear her say, "Stop it, you're gonna get me in trouble. He could be home any minute." My heart sank. It actually hurt, like my chest was being pulled in on itself. She was pacing the room, phone to her ear, giggling like a teenager. That bright, sparkly voice I hadn't heard directed at me in months. I didn't barge in. I didn't yell. I just turned around, walked back downstairs, and sat in the dark. I didn't cry. Not yet. I didn't scream. Not yet. I just sat there. A man sinking deeper into a storm, knowing the roof was about to collapse, and still trying to pretend maybe it wouldn't. And that night, when she came down all smiles, asking me if I'd like to watch something on Netflix together, I nodded, I smiled, I pretended everything was okay, because I wasn't ready, not yet. But I knew something was breaking. After that night, everything changed. Even if I pretended it hadn't, Sarah didn't know I heard her. She smiled the next morning, made coffee like nothing happened, said she had a girls' lunch with coworkers. I just nodded, but inside, something in me was done pretending. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't jealous, I was tired of being made the fool. That day, I skipped work, risked getting fired, but I needed answers more than I needed the paycheck. I waited until she left, then I opened her laptop. It was locked. Of course, she had never locked her laptop before. I stared at the password screen, hands shaking. I tried her birthday. Didn't work. Our anniversary. Didn't work. Then, I tried his name. Jake. Jake was her coworker from the hospital. The one she said was married, with 2 kids. The one she once laughed too loud with on speakerphone. The password worked. And what I saw, I swear, I wish I hadn't looked. There were emails. So many emails. Hidden in a folder called Insurance Logs-Clever. Right? Some were short, flirty, but others, "I wish you could hold me like you did last night, dash. He has no idea. Still thinks I'm an angel, dash. You make me feel alive again. Not like I'm stuck in that cold, silent marriage, dash. That cold, silent marriage. The one I worked 2 jobs to support. The one where I did the laundry, made dinner, held her hand through every panic attack." My stomach twisted, my chest felt hollow. I slammed the laptop shut and just sat there, staring at the wall, like I was staring straight into the end of my life. But here's the thing. I didn't scream, I didn't call her, I didn't do anything rash. I just sat still, let the pain burn through me like acid, because I knew I was about to become someone else, someone she'd regret betraying. I sat on that couch for hours, maybe longer. The clock ticked. The sun moved across the window, and I didn't move an inch. I kept thinking, was it just emotional? Was it physical? How long had this been going on? Did she love him? Did she ever love me? I knew I couldn't ask her, not yet. If I confronted her too early, she'd cry, blame me for being distant, for working too much. I've seen it before. Not just in movies, but in real life. Men like me, we get gaslight until we question our own reality. So I came up with a plan. I went online and bought a small hidden camera, one of those nanny cams disguised as an air freshener. I placed it in the living room, the room where she took most of her phone calls when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I didn't feel good doing it. It made me feel cheap, pathetic, but you know what felt worse? Being the last person in my own marriage to know the truth. And when I tell you what I saw, it still makes my hands shake. It wasn't just phone calls, it wasn't just flirtation. 2 days after I installed the camera, I came home from a night shift early, pretended I forgot my badge. She wasn't in bed, she wasn't in the shower. She was on the couch, whispering, wearing his hoodie. The one she claimed she accidentally brought from work. "He still doesn't know," she said. "I feel bad sometimes, but then I think, I deserve this. He never looks at me the way you do, dash. Never looks at her that way. I used to kiss her forehead when she was asleep just to remind myself how lucky I was. I used to rub her back when she was tired. I noticed every damn thing about her, but now I saw what she truly meant. I wasn't exciting. I was her safety net, her backup plan, her quiet little husband who worked double shifts while she played fantasy with another man. And that was the moment something inside me turned off. Not love, not pain, but fear, the fear of being alone. The fear of starting over. It just disappeared. Because I realized something important. I already was alone, she just hadn't told me yet. After that night, something inside me went numb. I still went to work, still came home, still kissed her on the forehead, just like always, but I wasn't really there anymore. It was like I was watching my life from the outside. Watching a man pretending to be married while his soul was quietly packing up and leaving the house. She didn't notice a thing, she laughed like always, smiled at me when she needed something. Sometimes she even kissed me longer than usual, probably out of guilt, but to me, every touch felt fake. Every word like a rehearsed line. I stopped checking the camera footage. I didn't need it anymore. I already knew what I needed now was a plan. That weekend, I told her I was picking up an extra shift. Truth was, I went to my brother Eric's place. He's the kind of guy who never liked Sarah, called her too polished, and said something about her eyes always looking past people. I never listened before now. I was ready to hear everything. When I told him what I'd seen, he didn't look shocked. He didn't say, "I told you so," either he just nodded and said, "So what are you gonna do, man? Cry until she gets bored and leaves? Or finally make her feel the way she made you feel?" I didn't have an answer, but those words stuck with me the whole ride home. And that night, while Sarah lay beside me, texting someone in the dark, probably him, I looked at her and thought, she thinks I'm still the same guy. She thinks I'll take whatever she gives me and call it love, but no, not anymore. Something new was growing in me, not hatred, not violence, but clarity. She broke something in me, and now I was ready to break something in return, but not with yelling, not with fists. I'd take my time, like a man who's been hurt too deep to scream anymore, like a man who finally stopped begging and started thinking. I didn't scream, didn't confront her, didn't even ask her where she was going when she dressed up late Friday night and said she was meeting coworkers for drinks. I just smiled and said, "Drive safe." And when she was gone, I sat on the couch in complete silence. No TV, no music, just me, and the sound of a clock ticking louder than it ever had before. I stared at the door for a long time, not waiting for her to come back, but thinking how many times I watched her walk through it after being with him. How many times did I kiss lips that had just lied to someone else? How many nights did I beg her for attention while she gave her heart, her body, to a man who didn't even have the guts to face me? That night, I opened a new email account. I created a document, a folder, started tracking things, her texts, her calls, receipts, changes in perfume, the way she suddenly took more care of her appearance. But not for me. I wasn't collecting proof for divorce, I was collecting truth for myself, because if I was going to walk away from the only woman I ever loved, I needed to know I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't just some insecure guy overthinking his marriage. And still, every night she came home, smiled, kissed my cheek, slipped into bed, like nothing was happening. And maybe that was the part that broke me most, not the affair, but the performance. Like I was too dumb to notice, like I'd stay asleep forever. But I was awake now, and the man she used to manipulate, he wasn't here anymore. She never saw it coming because she thought I was still the same man. Quiet, obedient, stupidly in love, but I had already moved out emotionally. The day I printed those photos of her and Daniel in that cheap hotel lobby was the day I stopped being hers. I didn't yell, I didn't smash things. I just left an envelope on the kitchen table. Inside it, the proof-printed emails, screenshots, hotel invoices, a list of every night she told me she was working late, with a red circle next to the lie, and a short note, "You can keep the house. I've already found peace." She called me 20 times, then 40. Then I started getting messages from his wife. Apparently, she didn't know either. Turns out, they had a kid, and she was more ruthless than I ever could be. She went public, legal, social media. My wife lost her job within a week. I didn't even have to lift a finger. I watched it all unfold from a friend's guest room. No celebration, no drinks, just quiet. And maybe that's the most painful revenge of all. To leave someone to sit in the mess they made, without ever raising your voice, I still think about her sometimes, about the version of her I used to love, but then I remind myself, I wasn't mourning a real person, I was mourning a lie I believed in for too long, and now, I don't have much but I have peace, and that's something she'll never know again.